It all started 2 days ago. Traditional finance is integrating with the Stellar blockchain to tokenize assets in crypto to make it freely tradable. XML is rallying as a consequence, and it's doing so for the last 2 days. The question is, how much longer can this rally last? Who is buying here? Who is selling here? Who is still the driver of the demand? Let's have a look at the on-chain data, the data most people are not considering. Now, if you've been following this channel, you're part of this rally early on. The first video published over here got 2.2 times the regular number of views that the average video here gets. But then I made a follow-up video, and that video even got 3 times more views. In other words, the hype is accelerating. More and more people are interested in Stellar, but at some point the growth has to stop. Or does it? That first video was published when we were still at 16 cents. Now we are at 25 cents. So if you want to be early next time, then feel free to subscribe over here. Hi, my name is Gerhard. I'm in the crypto game for the last 8 years. I hit my first million 3 years ago, and I did this through active trading of altcoins and through timing the market. On average, I've outperformed buying and holding Bitcoin by 2% per month. And in the last 2 years, I started to live publish my trades. On average, a trade made 5.3%, and this is the track record. Every single trade is published in real time and is 100% traceable. Feel free to check out the details down below in the description. Now, some people on Twitter are just commenting on the news and are posting the chart. I'm also now regularly posting news. Feel free to check out the Twitter account of this channel. It is at Bitcoin Strat. Now, it appears as if Stellar is simply trading against an equilibrium. If you look at the US dollar price, sometimes we are below, sometimes we are above, but the average price, that's here the dotted line. Currently we are slightly above that. But once we look at Stellar relative to Bitcoin, the situation looks very different. Now, why would we look at that ratio? It's because of 2 reasons. First of all, investing is a game of opportunity costs, right? There is a lot of correlation within crypto. When Bitcoin goes up, then most altcoins go up as well. When Bitcoin goes down, most altcoins go down. So if we take on more risk, then we also should get more compensation. If we don't get more compensation, then we might just go with the benchmark, which is Bitcoin. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is that we get the idiosyncratic movements of a particular altcoin. So when something is going up or down, this can just be the general crypto market expanding and contracting. But by dividing this by the benchmark, we actually see what's going on for Stellar specifically. So we are currently outperforming. Let's zoom into that outperformance. Then we get this chart over here. This is a 2-hour chart. The rally started with the DTCC announcement. Since then, Stellar has outperformed by 75%, but we can see how the volatility is now also increasing. During that rally, we saw a drawdown over here of 7% and over here of 10%. But the recent drawdown is actually larger than that. It is 17%. Now, why does the volatility during such a rally suddenly increase? It's because when there's more attention on an asset, the leverage on that asset tends to increase as well. And that's a potential risk factor. The more leverage there is in the market, mainly through perpetual futures, through levered bets on the price, the more volatility we introduce and the less consistent a rally becomes. Now, the capital on the Stellar blockchain has suddenly shot up. It went from 160 million up to almost 250 million. Now, where does this come from? It comes from mainly just the price development of XLM itself, because many assets on the Stellar chain are directly bound with XLM, be this with liquidity pools or be this simply through borrowing and lending protocols where people are depositing XLM as collateral. So when XLM is going up, then automatically the TVL is going up to a degree as well. And so we can also measure that capital in XLM. And then we see the exact opposite. Then we see this going down. And that's again caused by the price going up, because not every single asset is bound with XLM. There's also stable coins, for example. And stable coins measured in XLM go down when the XLM price itself goes up. And so really, fundamentally, in terms of usage of the chain, there isn't a big breakout in the last few days. We simply have our long-term bullish trend. But let's zoom out a little bit. And let's have a look at a price target. How much higher can XLM realistically go from here? Of course, there's always hopium. There's always voices that say we get another 100x from here. But if we are trading based on risk versus reward, what's the pattern that we have observed historically? It's actually not that complicated. This is the long-term price chart, and from one rally to the next, the price tends to top out a bit earlier. That's mainly because of token inflation. So the liquid supply of Stellar is growing over time. If you just connect those tops, we are getting to a potential upper price target of around 50 cents. Now there's another way to look at this, and that's market cap comparisons. Isn't it interesting, right? The price is lower and lower for every single rally, but the market cap seems to be hitting the $15 to $16 billion mark every single time. Currently, we are at 8.5 billion. So there is a bit less than a 2x from here. Again, reaching 50 cents, a bit less than that, as a potential price target. But that's all assuming that the current rally is just hype and that the news that we got around the tokenization of assets in traditional finance at some point will become irrelevant again. Now let's have a look at the usage adoption of Stellar over time. What we've got over here, that's the number of processed transactions per month. This peaked in October of 2022 at 775 million transactions in that month. Now that went down to only 299 transactions. So we clearly have a negative trend here. Have a look at the number of new assets that are getting listed on Stellar. That peaked even 1 year earlier in September, October 2021. And here's the number of payments over time. That peaked a bit over 2 years ago. Here's the number of trades that peaked in May 2022, so now 4 years ago. And while the numbers aren't great, they are also not catastrophic, right? All of the trading is now in anticipation of those numbers going up. What I don't like though is that probably many of those transactions are automated arbitrage transactions, because a good chunk of the transactions are failed transactions. So that's when automated bots are using very tight gas fees and very tight slippage tolerances, and they only accept a transaction once those tight buffers got hit and it's actually a profitable transaction. So this high amount of failed transactions tells me that this is not all regular people doing natural transactions with each other. This is mainly programs executing trades. Now, what about this volatility here? At what point can we actually say that this rally might be over and that maybe we don't go to the 40, 50 cents? There's obviously more risk now. And that risk, as said, comes from additional leverage entering the market. Let's have a look at that leverage. Here's the funding rate of XLM over time. It still continues to be rather balanced. So there are the same number of long investors and short investors on the perpetual futures market, on the levered bets on XLM. The open interest, however, so the amounts of bets that are currently been placed on XLM, that is very high right now. And that's the problem. Have a look at how much open interest is correlated with the XLM price. When a lot of people bet on the price, when there's so much attention on XLM, the price goes up. When there's less attention on XLM and less people are betting on the price, then spot tends to follow as well. With a bit of a lag, but it follows. And currently, we are going up very high on open interest again. Not yet historically high, as in we have seen 600 million in open interest. And nobody knows for sure that we're going to peak out at those 600 million, right? We would have been early in July 2025 if we took the December 2024 peak as a reference. So this is no perfect indication, but it does give us an idea of when the air might be getting thinner. We are already elevated in short-term speculation. Once we reach the $500 and $600 million mark, things get very, very unstable. And I'm not saying that we will hit 600, and I'm also not saying that we will directly turn around at 600. We could go to 700 or 800, but probably open interest will not go to 1.5 billion or to 3 billion. There is an upper limit to how much leverage will be absorbed in an asset like Stellar. Perpetual futures trading volume is also correlated with the price, and that's also rather high right now. And we have to watch this very closely. Once this clearly goes down, and the indication isn't yet that obvious, but once this clearly goes down, then the attention might go down as well, and then open interest might follow as well. Trading volume tends to be the fastest of the indicators to display where attention is headed. Of course, with a price rally like like this, there's also a lot of short liquidations. Now, I've already mentioned this in the 2 prior videos, but in case you haven't watched them, here is a quick summary. I have done a backtest on the best moving average crosses, or to be more exact, I made 40,000 backtests because I ran all of those combinations. And historically, the best signals for Stellar are given by the 2-day and the 8-day simple moving average. Just have a look at how the portfolio measured in Stellar tokens is going up over time. So this is, I believe, the best short-term indicator. Now let's have a look at that strategy on the live chart. That's over here, as long as the 2-day SMA is above the 8-day SMA, which happened on the 24th of May. This is where we got our golden cross. The current momentum is probably still intact. We are still bullish. But once we get our death cross, as we did see in the past after such rallies, it very much makes sense to become cautious. That's when the price tends to subsequently decline again. So those kind of rallies, they are quick, but they're also measurable. And once we get the death cross of the 2-day SMA and the 8-day SMA, that's the time to say goodbye, at least for the short term. At least then this current wave of attention is dying down again. But currently we are very far away from this, right? The 8-day SMA is far away from being above that 2-day SMA. The delta is still expanding. But that's fundamentally my trading approach in crypto. I try to determine the best trading rule and then act upon that trading rule. If a trading rule worked very well for years and years for a particular asset, I think it's better to use that rule than just randomly guess when a rally might be turning around or when it might continue. And so that's how I make my outperformance. That's why on average over the last 173 trades or the last 2 years, I made 5.3% with every single trade. Again, that's the average. And so all of those trades are 100% verifiable. Let's have a look, for example, at this trade over here, where I shorted Pudgy Penguins. We just click on those 2 dates. That will then open the Telegram related message. That's over here on the 8th of May. I am selling Pudgy Penguins, or in other words, I'm shorting it. That was based on the best moving averages for Pengu at the time, which is the 8-day and the 11-day. And then a few days later, I closed that position. That was on the 23rd of May. Again, based on the golden cross, the moving average cross that we got. And so that's my approach. That's how I'm able to beat the market long term. And so all of those trades are of course announced in real time. You can also run your own backtests. So this platform is available to the premium members, and you can check out every single tutorial video over here. So that then explains how to set those different parameters and what they actually do, etc. How to interpret the data, how to interpret the numbers. But if you don't want to go that deep, you can simply just copy trade whatever I do. Or you can also enter the automatic copy trading if you don't even want to do the manual copying. But that's available to the annual subscribers. So I recommend simply just starting off with the monthly, do your first trades, make your first money, and then take those profits and reinvest them into the annual subscription, which by the way also saves you some money in the process. There's also a 7-day money back guarantee. So in case you don't like premium, just message me within the first 7 days. There's really no risk for you. Just email me over here and I will just send the money back to your credit card. Or alternatively, if you want to pay via crypto, that's possible as well. You just click over here and then you click on this button. You just send me a Telegram message and then we can arrange a crypto payment. So to sum up, currently the momentum for Stellar is still healthy. And there is clearly the potential for another 2x from here, given the historical market cap developments. Don't expect that appreciation to happen smoothly though, because leverage is increasing and with that volatility and potential drawdowns as well. We are not yet at record high leverage, but at some point that leverage will unwind again. Will this be at 400 million open interest, at 600 million open interest, at 800, I don't know. But this is a momentum play. This is not an asset to buy now and then sell in maybe 5 or 6 months. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube or see you in Premium. Link to Premium pops up here on the screen. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Cheers.